This episode is brought to you by Hub24, whose purpose is to connect advisors to innovative solutions that create opportunity. They're massive supporters of advisors, in particular those going solo, and they're one of the early players in the managed account space, and their epic functionality in that area, as well as their commitment to user experience, has led them to become a market leader in terms of advisor satisfaction. I can speak from personal experience when I say their BDM team are total legends, and they're there to help you work through the best solutions for your business. So you can check out more information at hub24.com.au. This episode is also brought to you by Centuria, who are a boutique, ultra high-performing fund manager. They've won pretty much all the awards there are to win. They've got a bunch of 5-star rated funds, and they're heavy into technical support for advisors around their products and strategies. On top of that, they're just an awesome group of people, and they've got a dedicated team there to support you. And if you haven't already spoken to the guys at Centuria and heard about what they do yourself a favor and reach out. Brad Fox, did he throw you under the bus?
Did Brad Fox throw me under the bus?
Mate, you've come in at a very challenging time, Phil.
Marc did assure me that all the heavy stuff was over and it would be plain sailing from here.
How's that going for you?
Oh, look, I came to the AFA to make a difference, so in a positive way. So if I can't make a positive difference right now, then there'll never be an opportunity.
Yeah, I suppose that's a good point. I think you've clearly been under the spotlight a lot in recent times. I think in contrast to some other people that have been involved, I think that the stand you've taken has been very supportive of the advisors. So I think clearly it's a testing time, but well done for your work so far. Hopefully not too much more to come.
Well, I mean, as I say, it's a testing time. It is a very emotional time. I mean, what we're going through at the moment, whether it's professional standards, Royal Commission, we're talking about people's livelihoods. We're talking about the future. We're talking about careers that people have built up over many years. So it is a very emotional time. We're talking about a public perception that doesn't represent the majority of experiences that people who have financial advisors have, as we know. People who have financial advisors, generally, they cherish that relationship.
Yeah, and it sounds almost like from some of the things that I've read that they're questioning, should we even be able to have ongoing fee arrangements? That's just saying, should we be able to have ongoing relationships with our clients? Like, it seems to be an extreme sort of position.
Well, I guess when you get something like this, as I say, with the Royal Commission, you are going to challenge at extremes. I mean, the Royal Commission didn't set out to go and find positive experiences and find a couple that retired happily and have had 10 years of planning for that, thanks to their financial advisor, and are happy financially, happy emotionally. That's not what the Royal Commission was out to find out.
Yeah, and I think...
Assuming that's what you're talking about.
Yes. Yeah, look...
We did go straight into it, didn't we?
Yes. Yeah, that's it. We may as well cut to the chase.
Yeah. I also think, same with the share market crash. The world's going to end. It's not just a correction that may be fixed the week later. All the media will be out there saying this is the world's ending because it sells newspapers, and this Royal Commission, there's some horror stories that have come out of it, and they need to be addressed, but it's not stopped the media saying this should be headlines. It should be the end of the whole financial planning industry. So yes, we need some common sense to come back into this discussion. Yeah,
definitely. And I think if you shine the light brightly enough on any industry, you're going to see bad things. I was talking to a client before in the advertising industry, and she was talking about some dodgy stuff with visas that they're like just for advertising campaigns. So I think it's just as you say, they're not out there looking for the good news stories.
No, but what we know is one poor experience is one poor experience too many.
Yes.
And there's always going to be more attention on our profession because we're managing people's money.
Absolutely.
There's a compulsory superannuation environment, so it's forcing money into this system. And when there's money involved, at times, unfortunately, there will be people there with the wrong intentions.
Well, it's a conflict is, money is good. People like money.
But, people do like money, and financial advisors help people make more money and feel confident.
So on balance, do you think that the Royal Commission is a good thing?
I have to say, I went into this thinking that the Royal Commission wasn't needed, and I've had to say my mind's been changed. It's definitely, with so much legislative changes going right back, FSR, FOFA, MySuper, LIF now, and now FASEA, our industry has been hit pretty hard in all areas of financial planning. But some of the stories have come out, and some at the high end of the management in the banks, I just did not know was happening. So I have actually changed my mind, and so
I think that's the point. What we've looked at from our perspective, I mean, there were a few examples of bad advice, poor advice, but I don't think anyone was really expecting the extent of systemic issues at an institutional level that came out over the majority of the 2 weeks, and the quantum that impacted people, both in the numbers of people impacted and the dollar terms. Now, I know ASIC obviously has been working on this for some time, but I don't think anyone sort of knew the extent to which some of the fees for no advice had panned out.
Yeah.
So yes, there were some poor advice examples, but that wasn't the majority of what was on show over 2 weeks. And as we know, it's not representative of the majority of financial advice.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm keen to talk about this the trail commissions thing, but I suppose on that with ASIC and the regulation, clearly it's easier for them to monitor and regulate on 5 larger licensees. But do they have the capacity to, if people move towards that more self-licensed model, and are they even conflicted in their want to maintain, to be able to make it easy for themselves to regulate a relatively smaller group of licensees as opposed to the thousands of advisors that are out there?
Yeah, that's a good question, because the answer, and we heard ASIC on the last day say that they basically don't have the capacity to monitor as much as they would like, and the best approach for them is the one-to-many through the major institutions, and that's what they've managed to do. There are those who've experienced the other hand, where they've gone to the absolute detail for the small advisor down the road. So whilst they're doing that, it also seems that a lot's been going on that either they've been monitoring and regulating, waiting for something to happen, or hasn't been seen.
And you've also got to remember that with the whole FASEA, that's for whoever wishes to become one, becomes a code monitoring body, and that will be a proactive way to monitor advisors and to look at their advice. Whereas, if the AFA and the FPA or whoever becomes a code monitoring body, that is actually doing the work on behalf of ASIC. ASIC will get more powers, but they're also transferring some of that monitoring onto the associations, whoever wishes to become a code monitoring body.
And you think that's why they've been so harsh on the associations in particular around the potential conflicts with, you want to grow your member base and support advisors, but then there's all these issues with reporting on advisors and picking up issues.
For Royal Commission or ASIC?
For the Royal Commission.
Okay, for the Royal Commission. Well, Phil was there, so he can probably talk better on that.
I'm sure he'd prefer to forget.
Yes. Well,
I'm sure everyone else would prefer to forget either.
But one of the things they did highlight, and we actually see the positives of that, is that the disciplinary committee. A lot of the times ASIC could be working and looking at an advisor for 2 or 3 years, and until they get banned, we as an association don't know that's one of our members.
Yeah.
So there is definitely that reporting across associations or between licensees that needs to be improved, and that's one of the main things that the Royal Commission picked up on the associations.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of good points were raised, and some questions are raised about the future and as far as code monitoring bodies and code schemes are concerned.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing about the Royal Commission, particularly since we're not actually an entity that's under the scope, going into that, we're wondering what's the narrative? What are they looking for?
Yeah, I remember the discussion we had about that, and you was pretty late notice, and we finally find out what they're looking at, sort of thing.
Well, you still don't know. I mean, the process is another thing altogether, and that's that's a challenging thing in itself. And I think it's easy for anyone to sort of sit there and look at anyone who fronted up there and say they could have done a better job. But I can tell you that the lead up to that is an extremely challenging experience. You get notices to produce on a Friday that require a response by 10 a.m. on a Monday, and it has to go to a third management document company before that. So it means it's got to be 2 p.m. on the Sunday. Yeah. So we've got 14 staff. We're not a major organisation, so we've got people who had to work at least 2-3 weekends, and even
Poor Connor.
Connor, Roz, Karen, the whole team actually pitched in, and even leading up to the hearing itself, we were told that we were going to be there on the Thursday. If there's anything more that they wanted to talk to us about, they'd let us know. And by 5 p.m. on the Tuesday, before Anzac Day, we hadn't received anything, so I thought at least we know the general. I mean, we've given them thousands of documents, but at least we know within the witness statement what they're going to ask us about. 7:30 on a Tuesday night before Anzac Day, we get another request for information to redact documents and provide them back to the Royal Commission by 4 p.m. Wednesday, Anzac Day.
Wow. Yeah, right.
So,
jeez, that's a bit un-Australian, isn't it?
So you then, Anzac Day, I can tell you, myself and Phil Anderson, and our solicitor spent poring over those documents to see what have we done wrong? Is there anything that that we feel that we could do better?
Yeah.
What are they going to challenge us on? So,
wow.
Even that process leading up there, I don't think anyone appreciates that.
Yeah. Well, I caught up with a new client last night, and he's a lawyer, works for one of the larger law firms in the city, and they're representing CBA. And as for the Royal Commission, he told me they've got 100 paralegals working on it. 100. So, yeah. And
look, if you come back to your question about do we support it? I think everyone said, certainly from a financial advice perspective, we said we've already been through enough. But there's obviously, as long as you can find flaws, there's more room. But what we need to think about is the human toll that's involved in this. Not only people participating in it, there's thousands of advisors out there doing the right thing that are supposedly tarred by the same brush. There's thousands of employees for AMP, all the banks, who are working hard, working their butts off, and some of them are ashamed to say who they work for because of what came out in the Royal Commission, and that's really sad. Yeah, that's un-Australian. Yeah, if you want to talk about what's un-Australian.
Yeah, obviously, financial services is a huge employer of people, but. There are a lot of people that have been impacted. I know that, like in my business, we're still getting new clients, but I've noticed with our marketing, we do a lot of workshops. My numbers are right down based on where they were at the start of the year. I was doing 2 classes a month with 30 people. Now it's much lower than that. So I think it's definitely my clients. It's like to your point that when you talk to people that have advisors, they understand advice. In my business, where all fee for service, we don't have any of those sort of the issues that have come under the spotlight, but it still does make people sort of question and doubt and definitely we talk. I think back to the Gen X Roadshow shortly after you started, Mark, and talking about the goal is to crack that 20% number of Australians getting advice. Feel like I think that I was always for the Royal Commission, but I think that's definitely from a consumer perspective, it's not helpful for bringing those numbers up and getting people the results or the help that they need to get the results they want.
Yeah, and it might have to go backwards to go forwards, and people have said that it might drop from 20% down to 15%. But speaking to a lot of advisors, especially over this last month, it's very common to hear that a client saying to their advisor, thank goodness I'm with you. I'm really happy what you're doing, but gee, there must be some terrible ones out there. So it's the advisors, the ones who have got relationships or built relationships with their clients, are not hearing anything negative about themselves, but the people, first time probably, in my memory of it, that people are really hearing what's in the media and are questioning their advisors, but not so much what they've got themselves, which is a healthy sign. But we do have a big job in restoring trust, no question.
I think I was talking to these other clients this morning, and they were asking if they bank with AMP. I think AMP's copped so much,
Yeah.
so much of it that people are they're not sure what they should do. Should they do I assure them that the products are the products? But yeah, I think people are rightly concerned.
And people don't understand. And my mum's, she's 80. She's in an AMP product. She's on a platform, and she rang up and said it's with AMP. Is that okay? And she doesn't understand, the difference between things. But she just hears that, and that's resonated throughout the community. And as you say, that therefore it discourages people from. That trust aspect discourages people from actually thinking about investing, discourages people from perhaps seeking advice. But as Mark said, and I tried to illustrate as well, those people who do seek advice, they do value it, and they do trust the person that's giving them advice most of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the Sun Super guys, they did all that research recently on the value of advice and can see that and the confidence that it comes. And I think all advisors see that with their clients as well. So should they break up aligned businesses?
Well, I'm not sure if you've seen our submission, and there's a follow-up to the 28 questions from the Royal Commission.
I tried to read it on my honeymoon, and the wifey didn't like it too much. 29 pages, I think. I got through about 4 before she made me get off my phone.
And look, we need a sustainable advice profession, and that comes in various shapes and forms. What we've argued is that vertical integration as it stands does have conflicts, but they're manageable, and they provide different mechanisms for people to be able to access products and access advice. The key thing is to make sure that they are separate and that the advice is in the client's best interest. But by having a model that one supports the other, I think that does provide, say, another avenue for advice. And vertical integration doesn't have to be institutionalised. It can operate in small businesses as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you see this in the multi-business unit businesses that where people will have other services in-house, and they all support each other as well.
And even if you look at the other responses to the 28 questions, Choice, ASIC, and most of the other major institutions agreed that in some way vertical integration is manageable. They didn't actually come out and say that it should be dismantled.
Yeah. And so because obviously this fee for no service and the trailing commissions thing was something that was a lot of time was spent on. Do you think that should be removed? Like, I think I know a lot of people that have built businesses around those sorts of payments, and I've read some of the arguments around why we should keep them, but they don't seem to carry much water for me. I sort of feel that with those products, and although the fees are small, like if they were stripped out, then the consumer's going to be better off. Like especially on the platform super fund side of things, like that's a competitive space. I feel that there should be. I get the argument about, well, maybe they've got some legacy insurance or something, but why can't there be a product created by the same business that takes on the same risk?
So you're talking about fees for no service, or you're talking about grandfathering?
Both. Like
that's the majority of the. Sorry to interrupt.
No. I'm just saying that there's those trailing fees on all of the products where people aren't serviced. There's businesses that have got tens of thousands of clients where that's clearly happening. But then also the whether to grandfather it, because I think if they don't grandfather, then it just gets sucked up into the product provider. But surely people should just come out with more other products that are cheaper. To allow people to access the cheaper product, so it's not just the company that's reaping all the benefits.
Yeah. Saying that, you're saying that there's plenty of advisors out there have 10,000 clients just sitting on these big books. There's a couple of things on that. One is we don't have the stats, and I think that's one of these big. Definitely, Phil Anderson's very keen on finding out. Well, if people are saying grandfather, we should switch it off. But why? What are the numbers? Is it a reducing number since FOFA brought it in? We do need to actually get some facts around this rather than just these blanket statements. We should just cut out grandfathering. So I think that's a really important part. But secondly, we all have now a best interest duty. So we can't just ignore, we can't just have 10,000 clients receiving income from and just ignore them and just receive the trail committee. There is a duty on every advisor to go out there and to write to every these clients. And if they're not getting that, they've got an issue there. So there is legislation in place to deal with this. And I actually do think it's a reducing number of the people who've got these big books. I think that is.
I'm not saying.
We just need some facts around it. I really am keen to hear how many of these are out there.
But the reality is that, and that's why I asked the question at the beginning, the majority of focus was on fees for no service.
Yeah.
So it was around the institutions and how they treated advisors, whether it was under BOLA or was a transfer, whether or there was employed advisors, where there was a fee being deducted from the client's account, where there should have been a service or advice provided, and it wasn't.
Sure.
So there wasn't an example of grandfathering in that. It was all talking about fees for no service. So the fact that the question of grandfathering came up is interesting because there wasn't a focus. There wasn't, as Mark said, there wasn't any anecdotal evidence that people had been disadvantaged from pre-FO for grandfathering.
Yeah.
And the reason that we said that we don't support the removal of grandfathering is because there is, firstly, no evidence as to how much people are being detrimentally affected. Secondly, there's no guarantee that if you remove the grandfathering, that the fees, and usually they're a lower trail than the average, there's no guarantee that they'll actually come off the product and go to the client.
Yep.
As you said, they most likely go into the product itself.
Yeah.
There's possible buy-sell. Some of those products have surrender penalties, and there's grandfathering of deeming for many of those pension clients. So it's a big task just to say remove grandfathering because people, and as you mentioned, insurance as well, there is no evidence as to how much benefit there would be for what hasn't been identified as a disadvantage to the client.
And the fee for no service, though, none of us disagree with that. You should be getting, if you get a fee, you should be providing a service. Simple as that.
Yeah, but yet there are business, just to clarify, I'm not saying there's heaps of businesses that do it, but what I'm saying is I know of a good handful of businesses that have done that just in my circle. And I think like the licensees obviously have the stats because they see, they have to account for all of these payments, and they know that the clients and when people are buying and selling books, then there's transfers, like the records are there. I sort of think that the grandfathering and the removal of grandfathering is a mechanism to remove the fees, right? Those fees for no service where the clients aren't getting serviced, and the money's still coming through, because if you stop the shifting, then it should just sort of wean off over time as well. But I think they could just strip out the costs, and the product provider should be compelled to create a product that doesn't have those fees built in, and then is cheaper. And if there's a legitimate reason for the person to stay in the product because it's still there, but otherwise go into a more competitive product. Because I think there are examples, and it's like I saw a lot of this in the lift debate from people that wanted to hold on to the status quo, that you can come up with examples to say this person with the deeming provisions is going to be impacted negatively if we remove it. But I think, and I don't have the stats, I'd be very interested to see them, but that probably the majority, and I think probably the vast majority of people that are in these products with the trailing grandfathered commissions are they're probably not going to be significantly negatively impacted if they were to change to a new product.
It came up probably about 6 or 8 months ago, an example of this where an advisor member said, well, I've got this old contract. I would want to move the client into a better contract or a better policy, but the product provider won't do it. And they said, Mr. Association, what can you do about this? And we're sort of thinking, well, it is a pretty hard one. How much can we influence a product provider to say, you should do this? Maybe the Royal Commission is what was needed to help that, because it is a bit of a conundrum. How do we influence a product provider to do that when we actually see examples the client is worse off where they are?
But also remember, if you do go down that path, you're basically changing the law. You're affecting people retrospectively. There's probably going to therefore be compensation required. So as I say, it's what's the benefit outweighed by the disadvantage, and as I say, there wasn't a huge disadvantage, at least identified through the evidence in the Royal Commission.
I think the disadvantage is the trust that consumers have in the advisors, where they see that there's businesses that are built around receiving these little small amounts of fees from all these different people, but not getting looked after the way that they should from a financial advisor. Like people, there's a 30 basis points trail on a product, and an advisor's getting $27.60 a year. That it says on that person's statement that they've got a financial advisor, but they really don't, because you can't give financial advice for $27.60 a year. So I think, in my opinion, I think it would just be better to say, if you don't have an advisor, you've got a product, you should have an advisor. Go and pay them, whatever the financial advice fee is, so that you can actually have a financial advisor and get the benefits of financial advice.
Yeah, and if one other benefit to come out of this is that people become more engaged and people do see a name of a financial advisor there, and many of those advisors are servicing those clients and are contacting them and are available if they need to review their circumstances, and are moving them into more contemporary products if the situation allows it. But it's actually empowering people to actually become more engaged, and if they don't feel as if they've had the engagement from their advisor, then they're entitled to ask that question.
I hope it's empowering them to become more engaged, but I don't know. I think it's that's fear, I think, from people, that I don't know if it will drive engagement.
Well, it's certainly been a call to action, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's been an interesting call to action, because we've had clients ringing up and supporting their advisors.
Yeah.
But I think everyone is taking a look at themselves and their business and making sure that, if someone, put the microscope on me, am I doing the right thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Always a good thing.
Yeah.
And so do you think they should be disclosing these commissions? And commissions generally, I think that's one thing. Like, there's obviously these carve-outs under FOFA and fee disclosure statements around these trailing fees and the insurance commission side of things, and opt in. Like, isn't that a solution for fees for no service, right? If you're charging someone a fee, they have to opt in. If they don't, you have to turn the fee off. That's like a mechanism to protect the consumer from making sure that they're getting looked after and engaged in, I suppose, their relationship. Should that be put back on the table, do you think?
Well, that is there. So we do have to have a fee disclosure statement, and we do have to switch it off if we don't get that. So that was brought in with FOFA. But again, I think we just go back to, yes, in theory, advisors shouldn't be receiving fees or commissions without any service, but it still would just like to know the facts behind it. Because if since FOFA, so it's 2014, if it has been, if we know it, and we can find, as you said, through the licensees must know this, if it can actually be collected, and we can see, okay, over the last 4 years, it's dropped from whatever it was, 100% when it first started, and it's now down to 40%, and it'll be 2 more years it'll be gone, well, then we don't have an issue. But if it's 100% and stayed at 100%, which I'd be surprised if it was, but until we actually have all the facts and figures, it's pretty hard to sort of say, yes, this is what we should do.
So is someone doing that, or like getting those facts and figures? Who would do it?
I think there's huge organisations. I mean, if the regulator, and this is the interesting thing, that ASIC is being quite opinionated on a number of areas, and they've got the infrastructure to do that. And if there needs to be some more research, then maybe there should be.
Yeah,
and they've pretty well said, we thought when we had grandfathering there that it would be gone by now. And I said, well, yeah, if you don't have any statistics, how do you know it's not nearly gone?
Yeah.
It's that sort of thing, and they have the resources, or should have the resources, to be able to do this.
I think we need to balance, how do we... we're going through an extremely turbulent time. The cost of advice is increasing. The cost to be an advisor is increasing. So the cost to provide advice is increasing. And I think if we looked at everything completely ideologically, we would have a very expensive advice model, and very few people would actually be able to get advice.
Yeah, so that's my business model.
We need to balance it, so that we can enable people to access advice cost effectively, and we can ensure that that advisors can give the right advice in the client's best interests cost effectively as well.
So what's the solution to that? Keep the commissions.
The solution is to balance the interests so that we make sure that we have an effective distribution model and effective profession.
It's efficiencies. We all talk about people making nearly a living out of scaremongering about robo-advice.
Yeah.
But it's, to me, the efficiencies of what that can provide to an advice firm to bring down the cost of providing that advice is the solution.
For sure.
We have to be far more efficient.
It's got to be technology. This is the same thing that people complaining about with the LIF reforms, that, I can't afford to service clients unless I'm getting 140% commission on policy. It's like, get a digital document creation software thing, have a good database, and you can provide an SOA for whatever it costs you to sit in the meeting to deliver the advice.
And we're finding more and more of that software providers, especially watching what's happening in the States. You went over to FinCon, you saw what they're doing. It's some great applications that are coming out, but what we're finding is if advisors aren't going into competition with this, they're actually utilising this to bring down the cost of advice, and that's the future.
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt. We can't just sit there and say, let's protect everything and keep the status quo. And
of course.
No surviving, it's the old James, Charles Darwin, through those, it's not survival of the fittest, it's those most adaptable to change.
Yeah.
And yes, people have to look for efficiencies, and some people won't survive the changes we're going through, and they don't want to. But it is about adaptability, it's about finding efficiencies, about using technology. But it's also about making sure that anything that we do, that we're not cracking a walnut with a sledgehammer and making things so difficult and so complex and so unaffordable that no one can actually can continue to do what they need to do.
Yeah. And do you think, just with the things around the bowler and more so in the aligned models, is that something that you think will go or should go?
I have no doubt that that's being looked at. I have no doubt that that's being looked at.
Mm-hmm. Your thoughts?
I haven't really thought about it, to be honest. There's so many things to think about.
Yeah.
If affected properly, it should be an opportunity to realise the value of your business, but at the same time, when executed correctly, ensure that clients continue to get access to the service that they deserve.
I think it's more the questions though around it is that should it be, should they be allowed to have higher multiples for in-house products or the aligned products that are there? I think that's the potential for conflict on the advice side.
Yeah, and I think some of those anomalies were highlighted.
Yeah. So do you think this will all affect the valuations of financial planning businesses?
Short term, absolutely. We can see that already. But I think that's where it comes back to again. If you're looking at just product, just commission, just fees, that's only part of the story. What systems do you have in place? What relationships have you built? What's your unique selling proposition or value proposition? All that's now part of the selling price. It's not the old, it's 2 times renewals or 3 times renewals.
Yeah.
I never agreed to that model, never saw that, but that's what we traditionally have. And we're just evolving from that. And I just see short term, if you're still wanting it based on a multiple, you're going to be pretty unhappy, I would imagine, over the next 12 months. But I think it will help other people to start willing, how am I providing value? What is the value in my business? That's a good thing.
And what do you guys think will be the outcome of the commission once the report comes out?
In wealth management and financial advice, which was interesting. There wasn't a lot of wealth management covered in the 2 weeks that wealth management and financial advice was covered. Look, I think if you look at in total, one of the key things was to look at the culture of the large organisations, and does that culture, does the culture then produce results that mean that the client's best interests aren't looked after? Is there a structure where people are incentivised to do the things that they shouldn't be doing to the disadvantage of clients? And I think that's already coming out that we need to look at the culture within organisations to say that, is there an issue there? What are the incentives? I know there's been some coverage around the changing of incentives for planners to be not revenue based, but unless those incentives carry all the way up the chain, it's not going to be as effective. I mean, it's great to have a balanced scorecard where your incentive is based on compliance and whether it's net promoter score or whatever, but unless those incentives go right through the organisation, I think that's not really going to get the effect that you want. So I think ultimately, if we can have, I think there's going to be a bit of a watershed in terms of culture, and everyone's looking at things through a different lens. And I know sometimes now we're looking at a decision and saying, okay, so we're making that decision. Fast forward yourself to the Royal Commission of 2028.
Yeah.
And you're on the stand and you're asked, so why did you make that decision, Mr. Kewin?
Yep.
So why did you make that decision, Mr. Nash?
I like that approach. I feel like the industry would be better for it if all the decisions were made that way.
And so if we have institutions that from top to bottom, notwithstanding all the good people in there from top to bottom, have an approach where the culture is one of making sure that, is this the right thing to do, then I think that will be a good outcome. So in terms of whether that's legislating incentives, bonuses, management, whether management are prosecuted as a result of this, I don't know. What I'm hoping from an advice perspective is, yes, we'll go through some pain, as Marc said, but we'll come out of it and recognise that with some changes, and there were some good challenging comments, as I made earlier, about code monitoring bodies and multiple bodies and whether that's going to be effective. And it was probably fair to raise that, and that may be something to come up.
I think when we've provided what we believe from the AFA we want to happen, where it would land, and especially if you split grandfathering or commissions into investment commissions or super commissions to life insurance commission. Well, we've got LIF, it's in its infancy, let it have a chance.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's on that side of it. But the other side, grandfathering, we don't have the facts, we want to know them, but we don't believe in fee for no service. So that's what the AFA believe in. That's our opportunity with the Royal Commission, with the politicians to influence, to get them to understand, because there's a lot of headlines, and that's where we need to help them understand. Well, what does grandfathering actually mean? Because if you ask probably 3 different people, they'd have 3 different versions of it. So there's our challenge for the next 3-6 months before the Royal Commission, or while it's getting decided and when it finishes up, is how can we influence that?
Yep.
I mean, the concern I have is you're asking what's going to come out of it. There was, I believe, an undue pressure on, you talked about grandfathering, on commissions, on risk commission, on whether commission should be addressed again. And we've seen just recently with ASIC coming out and talking about removing of conflicted remuneration completely. We've just had the life insurance framework started. We're only four months in, and to be talking already about removing commissions on life insurance is ridiculous. And we didn't see anything in the Royal Commission other than one example of a planner recommending a ridiculous amount of insurance on the back of some other poor advice. But apart from that, there was nothing in there. There was no call to action to say that insurance commission is causing a problem.
I think we've all seen enough of that through the process.
This is the thing, and that's why I'd hate to see this politicised to the extent that because maybe ideologically some people didn't see commission removed through previous processes, that they use the Royal Commission to do that with something like life insurance, because we know there is no model around the world that successfully enables people to get access to affordable advice on insurance alone, other than the commission model.
Well, yeah, I do fee-only insurance advice in my business, but I wouldn't say that it's affordable for all people. I can only do it because I've got a comprehensive process around the rest of the...
That's right.
And that's why I say insurance alone.
Yeah, insurance alone.
Absolutely. Yeah, but technology should enable that at some point in the future. Don't you think they should disclose commissions, like life insurance commissions?
We do.
On fee disclosure statements, though? No.
But on the statement of advice
Yeah.
to actually give the advice.
Yep. But you give someone a statement of advice today, and 5 years from now, you're just listed as the advisor on their policy. They're not engaged in an ongoing fee arrangement. You're not providing them updated statements of advice. Then it's no longer disclosed, and it's easy for the individual to forget, right?
Yeah, true.
I don't see why. I think that, if advisors are receiving a commission of hundreds and sometimes it's thousands of dollars on policies, I think consumers should be made aware of that, because they say, I guarantee you get a letter or an email and it says your advisor got paid $1,000. If you haven't spoken to your advisor, you're going to call him up or you'll go find another advisor.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Yeah. And saying that, though, anyone who is, say, a pure risk writer or life insurance writer, if they're not going back engaging their clients, they're not going to build a relationship, they're not going to keep those clients. So it's like in any business model, if you just ignore your clientele and always going after new business, it's not as successful. It's not as successful. And we've got a best interest duty. We can't just ignore them.
Well, the LIF, I think, will probably solve that, because it makes it less attractive and lucrative, I suppose, to just, get upfront commissions and then
Absolutely.
That's true.
And then leave the clients. But I think that there's still a lot, because once you've got an insurance policy, especially if you have a deterioration in your health, you're not going to go and change your policy most of the time. People don't want to revisit. They don't think about it, except they think about the premiums and how they can cut them. But I think I think there's still probably a lot of people that aren't getting the service that they could, and I think that if that disclosure was there, that they would be more likely to look for that assistance.
And I have no doubt that a few years from now, when LIF has been introduced and we've got higher ongoing commissions, that's going to be much more topical. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and so with just on the FASIA and the education and professional standards, there's obviously been all this stuff in the Royal Commission and issues that have been highlighted, but seems like none of those would be solved with this. With what's been coming through, do you think that there should be some consideration of that in how the standards are set to make more of a focus on things like you mentioned, culture and ethics, more so than it is now?
Well, FASIA does address that as part of the... Okay, so for new advisors coming from the 1st January and being degree qualified, but for existing advisors doing the transition, whether you've got a relatable or relevant degree or you just RG 146 and you've got to say where it settles on graduate diploma, well, there'll be 3 new subjects. One will be on ethics, one will be on behavioural finance, one will be on the corps or governance. So that's not our typical advanced diploma or diploma we've had to do in past, or our CPD points in a lot of ways. So it is addressing ethics and behavioural finance. So I think that's actually a positive move.
Do you think it's going far enough?
I haven't seen it yet.
In terms of...
Okay.
I'm not sure what your question is.
Like with the standards that they're proposing, we see these issues of that have been raised, and whether there could be some tie-in between the professional standards that are set to maybe go some of the way to avoiding some of these issues that have happened.
I mean, the first thing is you can't legislate for bad behaviour.
Yeah, I suppose that's a good point.
Or fraud.
Or fraud, and I believe even even Kelly O'Dwyer, the minister, and other ministers recognise that even the most educated, and we saw it in the Royal Commission, people had good qualifications, did the wrong thing. So in terms of professional standards, yes, it's to have a minimum level of education, therefore means that from a community perspective looking in, they can understand that everyone's got a base, an appropriate level of education. From an ethical perspective, I don't think there's anything wrong with having, FASIA, a code of ethics, which we're currently in the consultation period, but everyone adhering to and spending time on ethical standards.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think everyone benefits from that, and done correctly, you actually execute advice the best way for your client is the best outcome for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and one last one with.
Where was the fun stuff? You said there was some fun stuff in this.
That was the fun stuff. The Royal Commission.
The value of advice.
Yeah. One of the things
The other guys are really, they had jokes and everything.
Well, go on, you go. Give us the joke. I
thought you were going to ask Marc about his background and things like that.
Yeah.
No,
not today. Too much. I think this sort of stuff. I think everybody's asking questions. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and as Marc mentioned at the start, the media hype that surrounds a lot of these things, it's quite sensational. So, I think a lot of people are asking questions. Great to hear what you guys are doing. I know that, like I had one of the questions I was going to ask tongue in cheek, but around the role of the associations. You look at, and we've spoken about this before, Phil, you look at something like an MDRT where there is they're an association, but it's like a training association. They don't get involved in any of this stuff. And I've obviously been a volunteer for the AFA for the last seven years or so. And this stuff, I had a question from Dean asking about like consumer education, because consumer education is about financial advice is something that probably could go a long way to helping more people get more advice, cracking the glass ceiling and doing all that sort of stuff. But I know that you guys are so consumed, like you say, working all Anzac Day, very un-Australian to do this stuff. So it's obviously a huge impost on the associations, and it seems like for the last, certainly the time that I've been involved, you, the whole team at the AFA, Brad Fox before you, Phil and Sam as well. Like it's just it seems all consuming, and it seems to me like such a shame that you're an association. You've got resources. You could help push the industry forward, or like do things to enhance and make it easier for advisors. But we're trapped into being reactive around I think these legislative change.
There's no doubt that takes up a lot of energy. But we've continued to do what we need to do and do some really positive things. I mean, I've just come off the back of the Inspire Roadshow. We've had over 550 attendees around Australia in what has just been an energetic event where we're inspiring more women to follow financial advice careers, empowering more women to step up and advocating for more issues for women to get financial advice, and for the community and for the government to actually advocate for financial advice. So that's been going on. We've had our Connect Roadshow a couple of months ago where we had over 1,000 attendees, and the same thing. It's all about focusing on the things that we can control, and the positive things, and sharing the positive stories that people like Marc go through every day, except when he comes in the office with me. So we've continued to do that. We've continued to add content to the YBI website. We have over 6,000 views per month now. And I still implore anyone who's an AFA member, if you're on Find My Advisor, go in and update your profile. People are now looking. We're getting more referrals from the ASIC website. We're getting more people as a result of this. I talked about earlier the call to action. There are more people coming in and actually looking for financial advisors, but they're looking for good financial advisors who understand them. So again, I'd implore anyone who's got their profile to update it, because people are looking at them and they want to see that this person understands me, and I can actually contact them and they can actually help me. So we're doing all of those good things. I know that's the promo, but it's not as if everything's it's not as if everything has stopped. And we've done a lot of work on our compliance. It was interesting going into the Royal Commission saying we've had 19 issues over the last 5 years, 9 complaints and 8 incidences, which are effectively self-reporting. So what should we be concerned about? And that's because we're not, at the moment, we're not in the chain of complaint command. Advisor, licensee, and then wherever it goes from there, whether it's FOS or ASIC. But every complaint an issue that we've dealt with, that we've received, we've dealt with. And that's the most important thing.
Absolutely.
And from my point of view, Phil, Kewin here and Phil Anderson, and they're, as you seen, say, reactive, but they are the voice. They are out there to influence government. They are there to meet with the regulator and front royal commissions if they have to. But definitely from us, from a board point of view, one of our spheres of engagement is the community engagement, and that's not just our membership, but that is actually the consumer. If we become a professional body, that our focus is definitely directly to the consumer, how we as advisors and members can help the community in more than we are now. And as you said, you've been part of the AFA, you volunteer. A big push of what I do is they're saying, well, what I really like about this association with this long history is that we always get 15-20% of our members volunteer. And it's only once you do get in, volunteer, whether it's one of our community practices, you actually get to see the work the AFA and the FPA and other associations are doing on behalf of the members. And it is unfortunate when you do see comments outside saying, these associations do nothing. And so, well, have you actually ever been to a meeting? Have you ever been to an event? Well,
absolutely.
No. So it's just what I've been told. And it's only when someone like yourself who actually gets involved and actually sees the work and see, people rolling their sleeves up and actually getting in for the benefit of this industry and this profession, that's what we want to keep doing.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's always good to get you guys on and talk about what's happening. We've been doing this for years. When Foxy was under fire with the lift stuff, we got him on because he can, as you rightly say, you can from the outside it's easy to say, well, they're copying it. The media obviously slamming everybody, and no one's doing anything but working on Anzac Day.
And that's what people. And it's not. I'm not complaining about working on Anzac Day.
I'm complaining about you working on Anzac Day.
Absolutely.
Unacceptable.
And you don't get much sleep in the lead up to those sorts of things either. But I guess the thing is that there are a lot of things going on. We're still meeting with the regulators, with ASIC. We're still meeting with politicians on a regular basis. We go down to Canberra. We advocate. At times it's not flavour of the month. The sorts of things that really help me get up in the morning is so we've just had the Inspire Roadshow. You had Jackie Cooper, who's former Olympian, 39 times world champion, best in her field. And, she said she really didn't know what to expect. She was coming to a financial services roadshow, didn't know what that meant. Sorry?
That's funny.
Or she's an ambassador.
Yeah.
She's not actually involved in it on a day-to-day basis. And she just said to me, this is amazing. What you guys do is amazing. And the fact that, the whole community that is turning up for each of these events, she said, and technically you're competitors, but you're prepared to get together as a community and share so that all of you can improve yourself. So that what you do is better for everyone. She said, that's really powerful. And she brought a friend on of hers along from the media in Melbourne as well, and he just said, "I just can't believe you guys do this."
Yeah, I was surprised about that when when I first came into the industry as well. I think I told the story a bunch of times, but obviously that's how we're all
collaborate, not competition, as Lee Shadell often says.
Yeah, people like Lee Shadell who epitomises the health and well-being of financial advice, and you could see people seeing her as a role model, and we had lots of fantastic, successful women showing how they were role models and how they were doing the best thing for themselves and their clients and the profession.
Good stuff.
They're the sorts of things that energise you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so how can people get involved with the AFA? What do you guys got coming up? What do people do to get engaged?
Well, in terms of engagement, what I would say is, you said before that a lot of people are looking from the outside in. Read some of the information that's coming out. I think we did a survey, and less than 70, in fact, nearly 70% of people said they hadn't read the proposed FASIA code. So if we really want to be participants and we really want to critique what's going on, read the stuff.
Is there a more fun way that people can get involved?
You didn't make this fun, but so now you talk about we've got to make the fun.
You told me to make a joke.
We've got to make the fun. So but it is important because we're in a FASIA consultation period. It's not just limited to us. Everyone has a voice. Yes, we have a Royal Commission committee. We have policy advocacy committee. So we have members' voice in there, and so we're doing our best to make our submissions on behalf of the members. But members and the advisor population need to if they really feel passionate about this, make a submission regarding the code, make a submission about professional standards, but do the fun stuff as well.
Yep.
Get involved in community practice. I hear Gen X is a fabulous community to get involved in.
That's what I hear as well.
Yeah.
And
And it's just got better, apparently. They've got a really good new national chair.
That's next month, isn't it?
And this coming Thursday in New South Wales, in Sydney. So
know.
James is running the next.
Around the country on Thursday.
Just around the
Tails
country.
And tails
That's
now.
this coming
Trish has
Thursday,
tails.
and-
Trish has put a stamp on things.
Yep.
And that's all I encourage anyone to do. If they want to know about the AFA, just come along to an event. Whether
Yeah,
it's
so I
about
think
Gen X or the next Practitioner Roadshow, you see it. If you like it, enjoy hearing the message, well then, you'll find your local community leader or state director and get involved.
And come to conference.
Yep.
The best way to get together and really share the AFA community, really share everything that's positive, and learn the how to do from your peers, is come to conference.
October. Yeah.
October 10th to 12th.
Yep.
RACV.
And you're not going to be away this time, are you, Ben?
No, I'm here, front and centre.
Good. But just actually why, the XY, it seems to me, works so well is because it's your peers helping peers. Someone will have a problem. What has everyone else done that is doing in that area? That's where I really love conference. Yes, we get main speakers, international speakers, but we always at least have 50 or 60 of your peers speaking. And that's always been a focus of ours, is that because we know advisors want to hear from other advisors, and we do that in spades.
Plus, you get to see Steve Crawford really hungover on the last day, which is always a pleasant sight.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just one thing you mentioned about this submission. I think something that stops a lot of people from doing that is that they think that it has to be a very legalistic, sort of extensive type document. But I know from the past conversations that I've had with people, you guys are happy to receive anything short, few sentences, bullet points, whatever, right? Is that right?
We're happy to get any feedback directly ourselves, and you go to the website and the links there to give us feedback. But by the same token, for FASEA professional standards and the code, they can go directly to FASEA. And the voice of many, even though we represent over 4,400 members, the voice of those 4,400, when supported by individual representations, obviously is that much more powerful, and it personalises it a bit more.
Absolutely, and I know that you guys read all of the submissions. Don't get very many, or not nearly as many as you'd like. So
we very rarely, when we ask for comment, we very rarely get a lot of feedback.
Well, Phil Kewin, Marc Bineham, gentlemen, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Ben,
It has.
Thank you very much.